Hello and welcome to the continuation of Day 6 curriculum. This is a part of Robotics for All's LEGO Robotics curriculum. As with all videos in the past, if you get stuck and need a little bit of extra time, feel free to pause this video and then resume it when you're ready to go. You just learned how to control the medium motor, but right now we're going to switch gears completely and we're going to learn a very new concept, which is the line follower program. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of the programming, I'm going to briefly explain how exactly this line follower program works. So the line follower program uses a color sensor, which is going to be pointed down at the ground. And the color sensor is going to detect the color of the ground. So what's going to happen is, if the color sensor detects the color of the line, let's say the line is blue, then it's going to keep turning until it doesn't detect blue. And then once it doesn't detect blue, it's going to turn the other direction until it detects blue. And once it detects blue, the moment it detects blue, it's going to turn the other direction until it doesn't detect blue. So you might think, isn't this counterintuitive? If you want to go straight, why is it turning all the time? Well, the thing is, all these turns add up to a global movement of moving forward. So you can see from the image right here, as it turns left first, then it turns right, and then so forth. Each of these turns is moving forward slightly. So over time, you have a global movement in the forward direction. And there is another way to make a line follower program that doesn't require all these turns left and right repeatedly, but that requires a lot more complex programming logic. And for today's purposes, we're going to keep it simple and we're going to teach you this version because it is pretty effective. Once you see it actually in action, it's actually pretty fast and going forward because it just keeps on making small turns. Once it sees the color, it makes it turn the other direction. And once it doesn't see the color, it's going to keep on going forward. So now let's get to the programming of this. So this is going to start with a loop because we want this thing to be repeating forever. It's going to keep on turning right, and then the moment it doesn't see the color, it's going to turn the other direction. It's going to repeat this process over and over again. It's going to take a lot of time. So we want a forever loop. And in some instances, you might want to control this with a different sensor. Let's say you wanted to keep following a line until maybe it sees red or it sees an object in front of it. In that case, you would select whatever control here you would want it to leave that forever loop. But for today's purposes, we're going to be using a forever loop because we want our program to be repeating infinite amount of times. So before we talk about the next concept, it's important to understand what exactly we're programming. So what we want is, we want the robot to look at the color that the color sensor sees, and then based on that, we want it to decide what it wants to do. So take a second and pause the video and think, what block would we need to use in order to have this kind of reasoning go on in the robot's brain? So pause the video right now and try to come up with an answer, then resume the video when you're ready. So the block that we need to use is a switch block, and you just learned this during your last day of class, so I'm going to drag a switch block over here. And the reason why we wanted to use a switch block is, well, I'm first going to change it to the color sensor. So because we wanted to detect a color, and we're going to go color sensor, compare color, and most of the times the line we're going to be following is blue, but if the line you're going to be following is another color, by all means change the color of this. So the reason why I want to use a switch block is, based off of what the color sensor sees, we want it to do a certain action. So if it sees blue, we want it to turn one direction. We want it to turn away from the line. But if it doesn't see blue, we want it to turn toward the line. So that's why we have this switch here, because right now what it's saying, if it sees blue, it's going to do whatever is up here in the check mark. But if it doesn't see blue, it's going to do whatever is down here. And what we want it to do when it sees blue is we want it to turn away from the blue line. We want it to do when it doesn't see blue is we want it to turn toward the blue line. So you might think, how are we going to make this turn? Well, there are a number of ways you can do it, but the simplest method is to just turn one of the motors. Because if you're only turning one of the motors on and the other motor is staying off, the robot is obviously going to turn in one direction. If you turn on the right motor, the robot is going to turn left. If you turn on the left motor, the robot is going to turn right. So to do this, we just need to use these single large motor blocks. And I know in the past you probably used move tank, but effectively, large motor is the same thing, except it's just one motor. So we want to turn one motor off, and we want to turn one motor on. So for the first one, let's turn this one off. So let's turn off motor B off. And what this says is that motor B, don't do anything. And now we want motor C to turn on. And I'm saying motor B and C because these are the most common ports that your large motors are going to be plugged into. But if your large motors aren't plugged into ports B and C, you should look on your robot and then select here whichever port it is. So this one we want to control port C, the motor in port C. And this we want to turn on. And the reason why we're using it on and not on for a certain number of rotations, we want it to turn until it sees that line. We don't know if it's going to be in 0.1 rotations. We don't know whether it's going to be 0.2 rotations. We just want it to keep going until you keep turning until it either sees the line or it doesn't see the line anymore. So here's the top part. And now the bottom part is almost the exact same. I'm going to copy and paste it to save some time here. But this time we want to turn on and off the opposite motor, because this one is telling to turn one direction if it sees the line, but this one is telling it to turn the other direction if it doesn't see the line. So we just gotta switch the port here. We want motor C to turn off in here, and we want motor B to turn on. We want opposite motors to turn on in each case. So this is actually the end of our program. So it might seem a little bit complicated, but in actuality, it's actually, if you understand the logic of the program, it's actually pretty simple. So part of this curriculum, you're going to have to explain to your teacher how this works. So I'm going to save you some time. Also, I'm going to explain it to you first. So please listen up very carefully. So effectively what we have here is that we have a line follower program, and that line follower program is the robot is going to turn until it sees the line, and the moment it sees the line, it's going to turn the other direction until it doesn't see the line. And this is being repeated in a forever loop, hence you see the forever loop right here. So this is effectively what it is up here. And when it sees blue, when it sees the line, it's going to turn off motor B, it's going to turn on motor C. So it's going to turn the other direction away from the line. And then it's going to keep doing that until it does not see the line anymore. And once it doesn't see the line, then it's going to turn on the other motor, which is motor B. It's going to keep turning until it actually sees the line. It's going to repeat this process over and over again. So hope this program made sense. If it didn't, please go ahead and rewatch this video. We hope you learned something new, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye. See you in the next one.